The Future in Play, a data-centric look at gaming and iGaming apps in 2025.
It's really my pleasure to be again at Sigma. I really like that, and I'm really enjoying that show. So today I would like to a little bit talk about the what actually we can see facing really in the iGaming, especially in topics related to apps. I'm kind of specializing in apps. So like saying about myself, I'm in the app performance marketing for a long time, working at Google. I was working for a long time with startups, with top Google clients in the gaming and iGaming space. I'm angel investor in quite a few projects. And if we look at the kind of overall the app space, we see that the apps are really rising in the casino and sports betting space. Yeah, it started more or less in end of 2023, but 2024 was actually quite strong growth. We have kind of a little bit small slowdown in the middle of 2025, but now we see that growth going again. And even we can see some players that are really putting significant actually focus on like growing their presence in the app space, like Bet365, Kaizen Gaming, and quite a few big players. And if we look at the iGaming by the perspective of data, we can actually see a few quite interesting topics. The first one is the online gambling overall is really growing, but with declining growth rates. So it's the data for the worldwide growth. So we see comparison of offline casinos and online casinos, comparing online, offline sports betting and online sports betting. So of course, like the online is growing faster, especially on the sports betting, where actually now we have like almost 150 million people in the online sports betting. In casino, it's actually quite a big market as well. We have around 120 million of people. So it's actually really growing space. If we go deeper and we start to compare the growth rates of revenue and users, we actually see quite interesting topic in both cases, both markets. Yeah, that overall the market is growing, but again, with kind of a little bit declining growth rate, that's one. But on the other side, we see much kind of higher growth of revenue than users. So we're getting to the point where actually it's getting harder and harder actually to add new users to the category. And of course, still if we even look like expectations of around like, the growth rates around like 8% or like around 7% are really actually impressive growth rates if you compare with other verticals. But overall, we see that revenue grows faster than download. And even if we look at some very mature market, it's even more visible. Yes, so for example, that's data for UK, and we see, of course, like slower growth rates. And again, we see that case that revenue grows faster than users. It's actually even more visible in the mature markets than, of course, in the emerging markets. Yeah, because again, in markets like UK, it's harder and harder to actually add new users to the category. And actually, we see actually very similar case in the casual gaming as well. So it's not like iGaming is not much different. Yes, so for example, here is the comparison of the casual gaming when we look at what's happening in the casual gaming in the PC, mobile, console. Again, we see still new users going and coming to the space, but with a little bit declining growth rate. Yes, so let's see in the casual gaming we have 3 billion of people, so it's not easy to add additional 100 million. And if we look at this notion that again revenue grows faster than users, we actually see that case not only in iGaming, but we see that in casual gaming as well. Yes, so that's data for casual gaming. When we compare, for example, in apps, specifically in apps, how the revenue grows year over year, including the last data for Q3 2025 comparing with the Q3 2024. And again, revenue grows faster than users. And of course, it's not bad because it's good that the revenue is growing. But I think that is actually one of the reasons why actually we have more and more focus on the app space. Because once we have the space where it's harder and harder to actually get new incremental audience, then you are focusing on those assets that are able to engage better existing users, which usually apps are just better than web, yeah? Because once you have the user once you have the app, it's way easier to optimize that app for the specific higher engagement, higher monetization as well. And we see here, for example, like if you have look at the FanDuel example, we see that overall apps, the main, I would say, characteristic of apps is just they're just bringing much more frequent users, much more people who are coming more often, the people who are more engaged. And again, that's why if we look at the app's logic as the overall, it's based on the retention rate, yeah? So that's why, for example, if you look at the next day retention rate, which is answer, okay, if I'm getting the user today, how many of them will get back the next day? Again, something that was very typical for casual gaming, and when I was working with the iGaming space like 3 years ago, no one was talking about engagement, no one was talking about retention rates. But because, again, we are getting to the space when revenue grows, but again, the users are getting slower in terms of growth, it means that there is more and more revenue will be coming from the existing users, which means that you need to focus more about how to actually engage them more. Yeah? That's why if we look at, for example, those top players like Bet365, FanDuel, or like Kaizen Gaming, actually they have very good retention rates. They're putting more and more focus on those assets to making sure that actually you can actually retain those users. Because, for example, 40% retention rate is very high result even in casual gaming. So that one is the thing. Then the second one is, of course, that one of the main reasons why the apps are really so focused is because it's just easier to access that, yeah? Because like if we know that by average, smartphone users have like around 40 apps, it's not that you just, you have like 5 sports betting or 5 casino apps on the phone. Usually you have like just like maybe one or just a few. So again, those two reasons are actually quite important. So why I'm talking about those topics? Because I'm expecting quite significant changes overall in the marketing. So 2 important, I think, questions that are happening. If we look again, revenue grows much faster than downloads and users. The main question is, okay, is that marketing system that is fully built on the first deposit on new registration can be sustained? Because if actually we have less and less users coming to the space, then either we will have those new registrations or first deposit getting more expensive. That's very simple, yeah, because you have small enough users, more people trying to get them, so they will be more expensive. Or you will be thinking, okay, how actually I'm able to use those that maybe I had 2 years ago, and I lost them, and then brought them back. And then, how actually we can raise and actually how we can catch up with growing LTV of users by retaining them. Again, it seems very simple, but I think the current marketing setup is very challenging question. Because again, most of the marketing techniques and most of the marketing discussions, okay, how to get new first deposits. And that's why even if we look at the, from my experience, let's see, if we look at the typical approach in the apps team, let's see when we have the acquisition team and that is focusing on getting new registration or getting new deposits. And then we have second one that is more like, okay, the LTV up to 30 days is more like on the acquisition side. The LTV after 30 days more like the acquisition, more like the CRM part. Very often, the setup makes that those teams are really not working together because they have different KPIs and they have different objectives, very often even competing with themselves about the same resource, about the same result. Because again, the acquisition is just caring much less about LTV, it cares much more about very cheap acquisition. Because it just matters, okay, I want to get specific LTV up to like day 30 and then what happens later, okay, it's interesting, but it's not my main KPI. Versus, for example, CRM, and upselling team, they are of course focusing on LTV, but they care less about where that user came from. Because they got just the first deposits and they got the registration in one bulk, and they just look at all the traffic sources, for example, together. And I think that's very big challenge for the iGaming, where again, as I was mentioning, revenue grows faster than users, which means that either you will have the campaigns that will try to change the perspective, and I think learn a lot from casual gaming, because in casual gaming, you have much easier, of course, measurement, but you have much easier and more collaborative approach in terms of marketing setup, or iGaming companies will be just facing growing cost of acquisition. We can even go deeper, yeah? So for example, like, we see that if we have the web and app, a lot of those users are not just starting, for example, from one acquisition channel and they just stayed. No, you have more and more cases when, for example, users are acquired via a web and then they're using app, and vice versa, yeah? And again, you have two different teams that have different KPIs. And for example, I'm from the, from the web team. So I don't really kind of care about those users, for example, who maybe they spend a lot on the web, but they were acquired on the app, because they will be attributed to the app team, even if maybe by my work, by making the website better, I will actually add the value to the LTV. Again, very big topic when actually we see more and more users, for example, starting from different devices. And I see that, for example, why it matters, because from what we saw at the different research, if we look at the different research around the users, we see less and less really those are the web users, or those are like the app users. They are just users. And I think that's really strong differentiation between app marketing and web marketing in the iGaming companies. Very often they're limiting their growth, because you are thinking less how to actually maybe try to do some synergy, how to really maybe acquire them in one channel and then increase the LTV on another one. You are thinking in very specific channel perspective. Because again, even if you look at, for example, we did a lot of research, especially in those categories like travel, retail, finance. We see that more and more users across all verticals are using both web and app. They're not just using only web, or they're not using only app, which means that this communication between the marketing channels, for example, between web and app, will need to be more sophisticated as well. So from that perspective, we can ask ourselves, okay, but what we can really expect in 2026 based on those data points? I think we will need, and probably we can expect, much more sophistication in the measurement. Because again, even very simple tactics when, okay, I just put the tracking code, that's maybe my CPA for the specific affiliation channel, or maybe that's my cost of the deposit for web or app, is not enough anymore. For example, there will be more and more focus on the measurement. Okay, if I'm acquiring the user, for example, on the web, how actually I can increase the LTV by pushing them to the app? How I can really, for example, kind of compare how I can really increase, for example, LTV by attributing part of the work from the acquisition team to the LTV team, and then from the LTV team to acquisition. Because again, at the end of the day, it's about LTV overall, not just in the small perspective. I think we can expect much more dynamic approach towards results analysis. And I think, again, iGaming will learn a lot from casual gaming. And for example, what we could see even once there was some kind of decline in the gaming in 2023, for example, beginning of 2024, you could see actually how actually iGaming space really grew by getting a lot of people from gaming. How actually a lot of iGaming companies became way, way more sophisticated in terms of marketing, creatives, because they just acquired people from gaming, casual gaming, where all those tactics were just, of course, on one side easier, on the other hand, were tested a long time ago. I'm expecting much more connection between data acquisition and creative teams. And again, if I worked both with iGaming and casual gaming companies, I see that casual gaming is way, way more advanced in that approach. iGaming companies are way, way more silos. Very often they have this kind of traditional company, kind of maybe genealogy, maybe you're coming from a lot of more like traditional companies. But again, I'm expecting much more silos approaching towards KPI. And I think those companies that will be doing that, the first one, will exactly avoid the main challenge that we'll face in the next years, which is growing cost of first deposit and first of the registration. Because again, I think what's even happening now, everyone is focused on very short-term results, which is actually making even harder to extend those categories. For example, casual gaming was much better in terms of doing very good onboarding, approaching the people who never played in the past. iGaming is still kind of way behind in terms of, okay, how to actually create the game or like the experience when you are not expecting someone to bet during the first like 1 hour. How to make him engage at first, understand the logic behind the specific experience, and then, for example, do the first deposits in a few days. Very often, if you look at the experiences in the iGaming space, is that you have the app, for example. If you are not ready to do the first deposit, you have nothing to do there. Because the only thing is just you can just register and do the first deposit. If you are not ready, you are not able to do that. And that would be all from my side. Happy to connect on the LinkedIn. I'm sharing quite a lot of data from the iGaming and casual gaming space on my LinkedIn. Very recently, I just released quite a few very deep report around apps, around Android, so happy to share it. And I think if we have some 2 minutes left for questions if someone would like to ask something. Thank you very much. Any questions, maybe? If not, thank you very much. Yes? I think you, we have the mic.
Hi, Mariusz. Thank you. As always, really good to hear you. Why do you think the industry is still so silo-focused? Why don't they break the barriers?
Because it works. Because it still works in the way that industry is growing. So I think even in casual gaming, you had a lot of changes enforced once the growth started to grow lower, yeah? So, and I think that is the main case that you see still in many markets potential for growth because let's see, even in terms of performance marketing. In the last years, there were quite a few markets that were open, so you could just enter those markets and they were growing like crazy. But I think more and more of those markets are getting to the specific maturity phase. So either you, as the business, you get to know how to work on lower margins, how to exactly maybe become more proficient in terms of performance marketing. But usually in this case, you don't have really a lot of low-hanging fruits. You need to do a lot of significant changes in terms of how to really make those creatives nicer, how to actually make those KPIs much more understood. Because very often, for example, there are specific bonuses people get based on the specific KPIs. Yeah, so it's very often we are talking about quite big changes. But I think I'm expecting that in like 2026 and onwards, because again, even if we look at the data, that's why I actually was showing the data, that till, let's see, 2025, 2026, this growth was kind of really higher, but it's just declining, yeah? And I think it's always the challenge around what is the outcome, what is the reason, yeah? And I think in this case, this declining growth rate is at least in part, I believe, kind of the reason for that is just that the iGaming is just more and more focused on ways, on the people who are in industry overall, but there are just less and less of such people, yeah? Once you do not find the way to extend industry to maybe more casual like iGaming players, maybe make more people to kind of understand how it works, then I think you will have much more challenges on the industry. Thank you very much.